A homeless mother, abandoned by luck, crosses paths with a lonely millionaire. When fate brings them face to face, she does something no one would ever expect. The sun shone brightly over Liberty Square in Philadelphia. Henry Anderson, CEO of Anderson Group, walked hurriedly, his cell phone pressed against his ear while discussing the final details of an important business merger. Under his arm, a folder stuffed with documents that needed to be reviewed before the afternoon meeting. In front of him, his 6-year-old daughter Claire skipped distractedly, enjoying the brief moment outdoors before being handed off to the babysitter. "Edward, we can't back down now. The investors from China have already confirmed their presence for next week," Henry argued with his partner, his eyes following Claire without really seeing her. "Expansion into the Asian market is our priority this quarter." The 38-year-old executive was known for his ability to conduct multiple operations simultaneously. He managed the company he had inherited from his father with surgical precision, transforming it into an empire in the technology sector. His schedule was timed to the minute, each moment accounted for to maximize results. Even this deviation in routine, taking Claire for a walk before handing her off to the babysitter, was a calculated concession, recommended by the girl's therapist to compensate for her mother's frequent absence due to work travel. "Daddy, look!" Claire's voice interrupted him, but Henry just nodded distractedly without diverting his attention from the conversation. Yes, sweetheart. I'll be right there," he responded automatically, before returning to the call. "Sorry, Edward. As I was saying, the financial report from the last quarter supports our position. We can—" Suddenly he felt an insistent tug at the hem of his pants. Claire had stopped and was pointing at something with such enthusiasm that Henry finally interrupted the call. "Edward, I need to hang up. I'll call you back in 5 minutes." He ended the call and crouched beside his daughter. "What is it, Claire?" The girl pointed to a nearby tree. Sitting on the roots that emerged from the ground, a girl the same age as Claire was concentrating on drawing in a worn notebook. Barefoot, with dirt-stained knees and curly hair falling over her face, the child seemed completely absorbed in her own world. "She's drawing, Daddy. Can I see?" Claire asked, already taking a step toward the girl. "Claire, we shouldn't bother her." "We have to go." Henry checked his watch, mentally calculating how long it would take to get to the office if traffic was average. But Claire had already freed herself from his hand and was running toward the unknown girl, carrying her pink lunchbox. Before Henry could reach her, his daughter was already sitting next to the other girl, opening her lunchbox and offering a cheese roll. "Hi, I'm Claire. Would you like a piece?" his daughter asked with the naturalness that only children possess. The girl raised her eyes from the notebook, surprised by the approach. She looked at the cheese roll, then at Claire, and finally sketched a small smile. "My name is Lily," she replied in a low voice, timidly accepting the offered snack. Henry approached, embarrassed by the situation, and that's when he noticed a woman sitting discreetly behind a nearby bench, carefully observing the interaction between the girls. When she realized she had been noticed, she stood up and walked toward the children. She wore simple clothes, a basic white blouse and faded jeans. Her dark hair was tied in an improvised bun with an elastic, and there was something in her posture that mixed alertness and dignity. "Lily, it's time for us to go," she called, avoiding Henry's gaze. "I'm sorry if my daughter bothered you," Henry hurried to say, extending his hand. "I'm Henry Anderson." The woman hesitated briefly before shaking his hand. "Carly Sanders," she responded simply. "Your daughter isn't bothering us. Lily likes to make friends, but we really need to go." Claire, realizing she was about to lose her new companion, quickly intervened. "Daddy, Lily doesn't have shoes. Can I give her my new flip-flops?" The innocent comment hung in the air like a cloud of embarrassment. Henry noticed Lily's bare feet for the first time and saw the tense expression that appeared on Carly's face. "Claire—" Henry began to gently reprimand his daughter for the indiscreet observation, but then changed his mind. "You have your sneakers in your backpack. We can offer the flip-flops if Lily wants them." The look that Carly gave him was loaded with complex emotions, wounded pride, reluctant gratitude, and something that seemed like distrust. "We don't need charity," she said quietly, just for Henry to hear. "It's not charity," he replied in the same tone. "It's just one child wanting to help another." Something in the simplicity of those words seemed to momentarily disarm Carly's defenses. She observed the two girls who were now comparing their drawings, Claire enthusiastically praising Lily's lines, who smiled shyly at the recognition. "Lily loves to draw," Carly commented, almost against her will. "She has talent, but—" She let the sentence die in the air. "But it's hard to develop talents when you're worried about the basics," Henry completed, surprising himself with his own perception. Carly stared at him, truly seeing him for the first time. "Exactly." Claire, oblivious to the tension between the adults, took off the colorful flip-flops she had received that week and offered them to Lily with the unpretentious generosity of childhood. "Here, they're super comfortable." Lily looked at her mother, waiting for approval. After a moment of hesitation, Carly nodded almost imperceptibly. The girl put on the flip-flops, her face lighting up with a smile. "Thank you," said Lily, pronouncing the word carefully, as if it were something precious. Henry's cell phone vibrated insistently in his pocket, probably Edward returning the interrupted call. For the first time in years he ignored it. There was something about that scene, the simplicity of that encounter, that prevented him from immediately returning to his world of negotiations and spreadsheets. "Claire and I usually have lunch here a few times a week," he heard himself saying. "If you frequent the square, perhaps the girls could play together again." It was a casual suggestion, almost automatic, the kind of social courtesy people make, without necessarily expecting it to materialize. But when Claire's eyes lit up with the possibility, and Lily broke into a spontaneous smile, something imperceptibly changed in the air. Carly studied Henry's face, as if looking for hidden signs of dubious intentions. What she found must have reassured her, for her countenance softened slightly. "Maybe," she replied simply. "Come on, Lily, thank Claire and Mr. Anderson. Just Henry." "Please," he corrected automatically. Lily carefully stored her notebook in a small worn backpack and hugged Claire with the naturalness that only children can demonstrate in newly formed friendships. "Thank you for the cheese roll and the flip-flops," she said to Claire. Then turning to Henry, she added, "Thank you, sir." As he watched mother and daughter walk away across the square, Henry felt Claire hold his hand and ask with the honesty of children, "Daddy, why didn't Lily have shoes?" The question hung in the air, seemingly simple, but loaded with complexities that his corporate world had not prepared him to explain. His phone vibrated again, and this time he answered, but his eyes remained fixed on the figures of Carly and Lily until they disappeared among the passers-by. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give it a like. Tell us which city you're watching from. We'll continue. In the days that followed, Claire didn't stop talking about Lily. During breakfast, on the way to school before going to sleep, the new friend had become the center of her conversations. Henry listened distractedly, responding with monosyllables, while his mind navigated between spreadsheets and presentations. "Daddy, can we go back to the square today?" Claire asked on a Wednesday, while Henry checked emails on his tablet during breakfast. "Not today, Princess. I have a video conference with the Japanese investors," he responded automatically, without raising his eyes from the screen. "But you promised." Claire's voice rose in indignant protest. Henry finally diverted his attention from the tablet to face his daughter. He didn't remember promising anything, but Claire's hurt look made him reconsider his schedule. "I promised?" "When?" he asked, trying to buy time while mentally reorganizing his commitments. "Last night. I asked if we could look for Lily today, and you said, uh-huh," Claire replied with the irrefutable logic of children. Henry sighed. That had probably happened during the 5 minutes he had been beside Claire's bed before she went to sleep, while he was responding to messages on his cell phone. Guilt hit him. He was so absent that he didn't even notice when he made promises. "I'll try, Claire. I'll ask Monica to move up some paperwork, and maybe we can stop by the square late afternoon," he conceded, imagining he could make up for lost time by working later into the night. Claire's radiant smile was worth the sacrifice. She jumped from her chair and hugged her father tightly, as if that were the best news in the world. Henry felt a tightness in his chest. When was the last time he had brought his daughter so much joy with something so simple? Later that day, as promised, father and daughter walked through Liberty Square. Claire carried her school backpack and a bag with extra snacks. "In case Lily is hungry," she had explained while carefully arranging sandwiches and cookies. The square was more crowded than at their first meeting. Students occupied the benches, Elderly people played checkers on the concrete tables, and street vendors offered popsicles and cotton candy. Henry observed carefully, looking for signs of Carly and Lily among the regulars. "There, Daddy, there!" Claire pointed enthusiastically to a distant corner of the square, where a small figure was leaning over something on the ground. It was Lily, drawing with colored chalk on the stone floor. She was wearing the same flip-flops Claire had given her, now dusty from continuous use. Carly was sitting on a nearby bench, watching her daughter while knitting something with colored yarn. Claire ran toward her friend, almost dropping the snack bag on the way. Henry followed her in more measured steps, suddenly conscious of his Italian suit and polished shoes, in contrast to the simplicity of the environment. "Hi, Miss Carly," he formally greeted as he approached. Carly raised her eyes from her handwork. She wore a light blue blouse and jeans, her hair tied in a more elaborate bun than before. There was something different about her appearance, a subtle care, as if she had prepared for this possible encounter. "Henry," she replied with a slight nod, putting away her knitting in a cloth bag. "Your daughter mentioned that you frequent the square regularly." "Actually, not as regularly as I should," he admitted, sitting on the opposite end of the bench. "But Claire hasn't stopped talking about Lily since they met." A small smile appeared on Carly's lips. "Lily, too. She's drawn your daughter several times," she commented, observing the two girls who were now drawing together. Claire kneeling beside Lily without worrying about her school uniform that would certainly get stained. A comfortable silence settled between them, filled only by the distant sounds of the square and the laughter of the girls. Henry noticed that Carly had delicate hands, despite the small calluses visible at the tips of her fingers, hands that worked. "Do you live near here?" Henry asked, trying to start a conversation. Carly's expression closed slightly. "We're in transition," she replied vaguely. "And you?" "In Riverside, a few blocks away," Henry indicated with his head the direction of the upscale Philadelphia neighborhood. "It's convenient for work and for Claire's school." Carly nodded without asking more questions. Her eyes constantly followed Lily's movements, like an attentive sentinel. "She has a lot of talent," Henry observed, noting the quality of the drawing Lily was creating, a set of colorful buildings that seemed like a magical version of the city. "Yes," Carly agreed, a note of pride in her voice. "Lily has always drawn well since she was very young. I try to keep some pencils and paper on hand, even when—" She interrupted the sentence. As if she had said too much, Claire came running up to them, followed by Lily, who walked more timidly. "Daddy, Lily has never been to an amusement park. Can we take her to Fairview Park, please?" Claire begged, her eyes shining with excitement. Lily seemed torn between hope and embarrassment. Carly immediately intervened. "Claire, dear, thank you for the invitation, but we have other plans," she said with gentle firmness. "What plans, Mom?" Lily asked, confused. The blush on Carly's cheeks was almost imperceptible but revealing. Henry understood that there were no other plans. It was just a dignified way to refuse what might seem like charity. "Actually," Henry said, an idea forming in his mind, "I need your help. I have tickets to the park through my company. They're for a corporate event, but I don't know anything about parks. Claire needs company her own age, and He hesitated, then continued. "I could use some tips on how to make my daughter have fun. I only understand reports and meetings," he completed with a self-deprecating smile. Carly looked at him directly, her eyes assessing the sincerity behind that proposal. Henry held her gaze, letting her see that, although the story about corporate tickets was invented, the desire for the girls to continue their friendship was genuine. "Please, Mom," Lily asked quietly, holding her mother's hand. Something in her daughter's gentle request seemed to disarm Carly's defenses. "When would it be?" she finally asked. "Saturday," Henry suggested. "I can pick you up at 10 in the morning." Carly hesitated again. "We can meet there," she counter-proposed. "At the main gate at 10:30. Henry realized what wasn't being said. She didn't want to reveal where they were living, didn't want him to know more than necessary about their situation. He respected the decision with a nod. "Perfect. We'll be there," he agreed. The girls celebrated, jumping and clapping. Claire took the snack bag and opened it, offering sandwiches and cookies. Lily looked at her mother, who nodded discreetly, allowing her daughter to accept. While the children ate and talked animatedly about the park rides, Henry observed Carly out of the corner of his eye. There was a silent strength in that woman, a dignity that intrigued him. Different from other women he had known, ambitious executives, calculating socialites, even his ex-wife Fiona, always impeccable and strategic in every move. Carly was solid ground. There were no artifices in her gestures or words, and that authenticity attracted him in a way he couldn't explain. "You don't have to do this," Carly said suddenly, in a low voice so only he could hear. "Do what?" "Pretend it's a casual outing." "I know you're trying to help," she replied without beating around the bush. Henry felt exposed, as if she could read his thoughts. "The girls get along well," he replied simply. "Claire doesn't have many friends. At her school, the children are—" He searched for the right word. "Different. Competitive from an early age." Carly softened her gaze. "Lily doesn't have many friends either. We move frequently," she revealed. Before the conversation could deepen, Henry's phone rang insistently. He checked the screen. It was Richard, his financial director. Probably about the meeting with the investors that had been rescheduled. "I need to take this," he apologized, stepping away a few paces. The call lasted only 2 minutes, but when he returned, he realized that Carly was already standing, calling Lily. "We need to go," she announced. "Thank you for the snack, Claire." "Already?" Henry asked, surprised by the sudden departure. "Yes, Lily has a community class at 5, Carly replied, helping her daughter put away the chalk in a small worn case. "Community class?" he repeated, curious. "At the Cultural Center in Saintfield. Volunteers teach music and arts to the children," she explained briefly. "We'll see you Saturday then." Lily thanked the nice people for the snack. Lily hugged Claire and thanked Henry timidly, who smiled in return. "Saturday, 10:30, he confirmed. "We'll be waiting at the main gate." As he watched mother and daughter walk away, Claire pulled at the sleeve of his jacket. "Daddy, I think Lily and Ms. Carly don't have a home," she said with the keen perception that children sometimes possess. Henry stroked his daughter's hair, thoughtful. "Everyone has a home, Princess. Some are just temporary," he replied, not quite knowing how to explain concepts like social vulnerability to a 6-year-old. "Then can we help them find a real home?" Claire asked, her childlike logic seeking simple solutions to complex problems. The question remained unanswered as Henry packed away the leftover snacks in the bag. In his mind, however, ideas were beginning to form, not about how to help Carly and Lily, but about how to get to know them better, understand who they were beyond the circumstances in which they found themselves. What had begun as a casual encounter was slowly transforming his meticulously planned routine. And, for the first time in a long time, Henry didn't mind the deviation from his calculated objectives. Fairview Park sparkled under the Saturday sun, its colorful lights and festive music, creating an atmosphere of joy that contrasted with the anxiety Henry felt while waiting at the main gate. Claire, dressed in a red jumpsuit and white sneakers, hopped beside him, checking her father's watch every 2 minutes. "They're late." "Daddy?" she commented worriedly. When the clock struck 10:40, "Only 10 minutes, Claire." "Traffic must be congested," Henry replied, trying to sound casual, but also wondering if Carly had changed her mind. 5 more minutes passed, until they spotted Lily and Carly walking hurriedly along the sidewalk. The girl wore a simple but well-ironed yellow dress and the flip-flops Claire had given her. Her curls were arranged with colorful ribbons. Carly wore a knee-length denim skirt and a basic white blouse. There was a natural elegance in her simplicity that caught Henry's attention. "Sorry we're late," Carly said as they approached. "The bus took longer than usual." "No problem," Henry smiled, noticing the fatigue on her face. "We just arrived ourselves." It was a gentle lie. They had been there for almost half an hour. As Henry, always punctual in his professional commitments, applied the same rigor to his personal life. Claire and Lily were already holding hands, making plans about which rides they would try first. Henry approached to buy the tickets, but Carly discreetly stopped him. "I brought money for our part," she said in a low voice, extending some crumpled bills. Henry hesitated. The amount she offered wouldn't cover even half the price of one ticket, but he understood the pride behind the gesture. "Actually," he improvised, "I got a corporate discount. My company occasionally sponsors events here." It wasn't exactly a lie, Anderson. Group really did sponsor some cultural events, though not specifically at that park. Carly studied him for a moment, as if assessing the veracity of that information, then reluctantly put the money away. The day passed at a different pace than Henry was accustomed to. There were no agendas, spreadsheets, or goals to accomplish, just time flowing to the rhythm of the girls' laughter. Lily, initially shy on the rides, soon loosened up, encouraged by Claire's enthusiasm. Henry discovered that Carly, despite her apparent reserve, possessed a sharp sense of humor and perceptive observations about the people around them. "That man over there," she discreetly pointed to an executive who was yelling on the phone while his son waited sadly beside him, "probably doesn't remember the last time he talked to his son without looking at his phone screen." The comment hit Henry like a precise arrow. How many times had Claire called to him while he was absorbed in emails or spreadsheets? "You're good at reading people," he observed while the girls were enjoying a carousel. Carly shrugged. "When you live, like I live, you learn to observe. To know who really sees you and who just looks through you." The raw sincerity of those words created a moment of unexpected connection between them. Henry realized that in his business world, he was used to people who measured every word, calculating the effect they would have. Carly, on the other hand, seemed incapable of dissimulation. After a few hours of rides and treats, the girls begged to go to the games area. While Claire and Lily tried to fish for plastic ducks to win prizes, Henry and Carly sat on a nearby bench. "Lily seems very happy today," Henry commented, observing the girl who was laughing without reservation. "She deserves days like this," Carly replied, a smile softening her normally alert features. "I try to give her the best I can, but it's not always easy to provide joy." "You're a good mother," Henry said sincerely. "Claire told me that Lily knows many stories and songs. She said she's the smartest girl she's ever met." The compliment made Carly briefly lower her gaze, as if she wasn't used to receiving recognition. "I read to her every night, no matter where we are," she revealed. "We frequent public libraries. It's free and keeps her mind active. And you? What do you like to read?" Henry asked, genuinely curious. The question seemed to surprise her, as if no one had been interested in her personal tastes for a long time. "American literature. Toni Morrison, Maya Angelou," she replied after a pause. "And you?" "Financial reports and contracts," Henry laughed without humor. "I haven't read a novel in years." "You're missing an entire world," Carly commented. And for the first time, Henry felt that perhaps she was right. The girls returned running, Lily holding a small teddy bear she had won in the game. "Mom, look what I won," she exclaimed, her eyes shining with happiness. "It's beautiful, my love," Carly smiled, adjusting one of the ribbons in her daughter's hair. "Can we go on the roller coaster now?" Claire asked, pulling her father's hand. The afternoon advanced between rides, cotton candy, and ice cream. In a relaxed moment, Henry photographed the girls in front of the Ferris wheel with his cell phone. It was the first time he saw Carly truly tense. "Please don't share that photo," she asked in a low voice when the girls moved away. "I didn't intend to," Henry assured, confused. "It's just for remembrance." Carly seemed to assess his sincerity before relaxing slightly. "I'm sorry. It's just that I prefer to maintain our privacy." Henry nodded, respecting her wish without asking more questions, although his curiosity increased. What was the story behind this woman, who was so reserved yet so transparent in her emotions? When the sun began to set, Claire and Lily were already showing signs of fatigue. Despite their protests that they could continue playing just a little longer, Carly checked the time and her countenance changed. "We need to go," she announced, suddenly alert. "The last bus to downtown leaves at 7. "I can give you a ride," Henry offered naturally. "That's not necessary," Carly refused, already collecting the small backpack where she had stored Lily's belongings. "Mom, I'm tired," Lily murmured, rubbing her sleepy eyes. Henry noticed the conflict on Carly's face, the desire to protect her privacy versus her daughter's evident fatigue. He decided to approach the situation differently. "Claire is also exhausted. I'm heading home, and on the way I can drop you off wherever is convenient," he suggested, maintaining a casual tone. "No commitments." Claire, sensing the hesitation, added her own plea. "Please, Aunt Carly, can Lily sleep at my house sometime? I have a room full of toys." The innocence of the invitation created a moment of tension that the girls didn't notice. Carly took a deep breath, then surprised Henry with her response. "Thank you for the ride offer. You can drop us off downtown near 7th Square." The trip in Henry's car was initially silent. The girls, overcome by fatigue, fell asleep in the back seat minutes after leaving the park. Carly looked out the window, observing the city that was beginning to light up. "It was a good day," Henry commented, breaking the silence. "Yes, it was," Carly agreed, a small smile on her lips. "Thank you for that. Lily hasn't had fun like this in a long time." "Claire either," admitted Henry. "Since Fiona and I separated, I've been working so much that I barely have time to be a father." Carly completed without judgment in her voice. Henry nodded, feeling the weight of that truth. Exactly. When they reached 7th Square in the center of the city, Carly asked him to stop near a bus station. "I can take you all the way home," Henry offered again. Carly hesitated, then looked at Lily asleep in the back seat. "We don't exactly have a home at the moment," she finally revealed, her voice almost a whisper. "We're in a temporary shelter on Willow Street. We can only stay 2 more weeks." The confession hung in the air like a heavy cloud. Henry absorbed the information without showing surprise or pity. He instinctively knew that either of these reactions would be offensive to Carly. "I understand," he replied simply. "I can take you there." "It's not a place for your car," Carly smiled without humor. "You can drop us off at the corner." Henry agreed, respecting her decision. When he stopped where she indicated, he helped wake the girls. Claire and Lily said goodbye with sleepy hugs and promises to play again soon. Before Carly got out of the car, Henry made an impulsive decision. "I have an empty apartment," he said quickly. "It was for investment. It's furnished and has been empty for months." Carly immediately stiffened, her gaze becoming distant. "I don't need charity," she responded firmly. "It's not charity," Henry countered. "It's a temporary favor. And you can help me too." "How?" she asked, suspicious. "Claire has become attached to Lily," and he hesitated, then decided to be honest. "I would like to get to know you both better. No pressure, no expectations, just as friends." Carly studied him for long seconds, her eyes looking for any sign of ulterior motives. What she saw must have partially reassured her. "I'll think about it," she finally replied. "Thank you for the day. Good night, Henry." When the car was back on the streets of Philadelphia, Claire had already fallen asleep again. Henry drove mechanically, his mind full of questions. Why was a clearly intelligent and dedicated woman like Carly in a shelter? What had happened in her life to reach that situation? And why did he, a man who calculated every move in his professional and personal life, feel so compelled to help her without expecting anything in return? In his penthouse apartment in Riverside, while carrying the sleeping Claire to bed, Henry made a decision. He would call his assistant on Monday and ask him to prepare the apartment in St. Augustine, clean, stocked, and ready to be inhabited. Whether Carly accepted or not was her choice, but he would be prepared. That night, before going to sleep, he did something he hadn't done in years. He opened a bookstore app and bought a novel, The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. Perhaps it was time to rediscover the worlds he had lost in his pursuit of business success. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give it a like. Tell us which city you're watching from. We'll continue. 3 weeks had passed since the outing to the park. The apartment in St. Augustine remained empty, impeccably prepared with food in the refrigerator, soft towels in the bathrooms, and even some children's books on the living room shelf, a last-minute addition that Henry had made personally. Remembering Lily's love for reading, Carly hadn't called. Henry respected her decision, although on several nights he had lain awake, wondering where she and Lily might be now that the time at the shelter had expired. He and Claire continued visiting Liberty Square regularly, but there was no sign of the duo. The absence was beginning to affect Claire, who asked about her friend daily. "Why did Lily disappear, Daddy? Doesn't she like me anymore?" She would ask with a choked voice as Henry put her to bed. "I'm sure that's not it, Princess. Sometimes people need to sort things out in their lives, and they disappear for a while," he would reply, feeling helpless in the face of his daughter's sadness. On a particularly busy Wednesday afternoon, Henry was in a meeting with investors when his secretary Monica discreetly interrupted. "Mr. Anderson, I apologize." "For the interruption," But there's an emergency at reception, she informed in a low voice. Henry frowned, irritated by the interruption. Emergency? What kind of emergency? He's a woman. With a child, Monica replied hesitantly. She said her name is Carly, and that her daughter is feeling ill. She asked to see you. Henry's heart raced. He stood up abruptly, surprising the executives around the table. Gentlemen, I apologize. We have an unforeseen situation that requires my immediate attention. Richard will continue presenting the next slides, he announced, already heading toward the door. In the luxurious lobby of Anderson Group, Carly seemed out of place among the impeccably dressed executives and receptionists. She wore a simple white blouse and jeans, her hair tied in a hastily made ponytail. In her arms, Lily was shivering, her face red with fever. "Carly!" Henry approached quickly. "What happened?" "I'm sorry to come like this," she replied, visibly distressed. "Lily has had a high fever since yesterday. I took her to the health clinic, but the line was huge and she got worse while we were waiting. I didn't know where else to go." Henry touched Lily's forehead. It was scalding hot. "We're going to the hospital now," he decided, placing his hand on Carly's back to guide her to the private elevator. "But your meeting," she protested weakly. "It's not important," he replied with a certainty that surprised him. At any other time, interrupting a meeting with investors would have been unthinkable. Now it seemed the only possible decision. At the private hospital near the business center, Lily was seen immediately. The doctors diagnosed an acute bacterial infection aggravated by low immunity. "She'll need to stay hospitalized for at least 2 days," the doctor informed. "She's dehydrated and we need to administer intravenous antibiotics." Carly paled beside Henry. "Doctor, I don't have health insurance or the means to—" "Don't worry about that now," Henry interrupted gently. "Let's take care of Lily first." While the girl was being prepared for admission, Henry and Carly waited in the waiting room. A heavy silence hung between them, broken only when Henry got up to fetch coffee for Carly. "Thank you," she murmured as she accepted the cup, her hands still trembling slightly. "Not just for the coffee, for all of this." Henry sat down beside her. "How have you been these weeks?" Carly sighed deeply before answering. "We left the shelter. The time was up and they needed the space," she explained, staring fixedly at the cup in her hands. "I got a temporary job at a bakery downtown. We rented a room in the back of a lady's house in the Lake District." "Why didn't you call me?" Henry asked, maintaining a neutral tone without accusation. Carly finally looked at him. "Because accepting help means owing something to someone, and I've had bad experiences with that," she replied honestly. "Besides, we're from very different worlds, Henry. Your daughter studies at a bilingual school. You drive a car that costs more than everything I've ever owned in my life. And that bothers you." "It's not a bother. It's reality. People like you usually help people like me out of charity, to feel good about themselves, to ease their consciences," she said without rancor, just stating a fact. "When the novelty wears off, when the feeling of doing good dissolves, they go back to their lives and we're left adrift once again." Carly's raw honesty hit Henry like a punch. There was truth in her words. How many times had he himself made substantial donations to charitable institutions, just to include them in the company's annual reports or to appease some vague feeling of guilt about his wealth? What if it's not like that this time? He asked, surprising himself with the question. Carly gave a small, tired smile. "It always is," she replied simply. A nurse approached, informing them that Lily was settled and they could see her. Carly stood up immediately. In the hospital room, Lily seemed even smaller against the white sheets. An IV had been placed in her arm, and she looked around with frightened eyes that lit up when she saw her mother. "Mommy," she called with a weak voice. "I'm here." "My love." Carly sat on the edge of the bed, stroking her daughter's disheveled curls. "How are you feeling?" "My head doesn't hurt as much," Lily replied. Then she noticed Henry standing near the door. "Uncle Henry, did Claire come too?" "Not this time, little one," he smiled, approaching. "She's at school. But when she finds out you're here, she'll want to come running to visit you." "Can I see her tomorrow?" Lily asked hopefully. "If you rest a lot today and take all your medicine properly," Henry replied, exchanging a look with Carly, who nodded slightly. Lily fell asleep shortly after, overcome by the medications. Carly remained beside her daughter, holding her hand even during sleep. "You must be tired," Henry observed. I can stay with her while you rest a bit. I'm fine, Carly replied automatically, although the deep dark circles under her eyes told another story. Carly, Henry tried again, you won't be able to take care of her if you get sick too. Something in those words seemed to reach her. After a long moment of hesitation, she finally agreed to go to the hospital cafeteria to eat something while Henry stayed with Lily. Alone in the room, observing the girl's restless sleep, Henry felt a wave of protection that surprised him. In a few encounters, Lily and Carly had become important in his life in a way he couldn't rationally explain. His phone vibrated. It was Claire calling from the babysitter's house. He answered, keeping his voice low. "Daddy, are you going to be late?" His daughter's voice sounded anxious on the other end. "A little princess, I'm at the hospital with Lily." "Lily is sick?" Claire asked, concerned. "Yes, but she's already getting better," Henry reassured. "Tomorrow you can visit her if your mother allows." "I want to bring my books for her to read when she gets better," Claire declared with conviction. "That's a great idea." After hanging up, Henry sent a message to the babysitter, explaining the situation and asking her to stay with Claire until later. Then he called Richard, apologizing for the abrupt exit from the meeting and asking for the results. The investors understood Henry, Richard reassured him. Family emergencies happen. Family. The word echoed in his mind as he watched Lily sleep. They weren't family, but for some reason it felt like they were. Carly returned half an hour later, looking slightly more rested. She sat in the armchair next to the bed and observed her daughter in silence for a few moments. "Is the apartment still available?" she asked suddenly, without taking her eyes off Lily. Henry felt a tightness in his chest. He knew how much that question must have cost her pride. "Yes," he answered simply. "When Lily is discharged." "Maybe we could see it," Carly continued, the words coming out with effort. "If the offer is still standing." "It is," Henry assured, resisting the urge to touch her hand. "No conditions, no deadlines. For as long as you need." Carly finally turned to face him, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "Why?" she asked, the question carrying the weight of all her doubts. "Why are you doing all this for us? Be honest, Henry." The question caught him off guard. Why, after all, it wasn't just kindness or charity as she suspected. There was something more, something he himself didn't fully understand. "Because you remind me of what's important," he finally answered, surprising himself with his own honesty. "Because in the few moments we've spent together, I've felt more alive than in years of signing contracts and closing deals. Because Claire smiles more when she's with Lily. And because," he hesitated, then completed, "because you challenge me to be better, Carly. Without trying, without demanding anything, just by being who you are." The words hung between them, loaded with a truth that neither of them expected to confront so directly. Carly didn't answer, but something changed in her gaze. An invisible barrier seemed to have been removed, even if partially. Lily stirred in the bed, her eyes opening slowly. "Mommy?" she called with a sleepy voice. "I'm here, my love," Carly responded immediately, leaning down to kiss her daughter's forehead. "I dreamed we were in a big house with a garden," Lily murmured, still half asleep. Claire was there too. We were all together. Henry and Carly exchanged a look over the girl's bed, a look that carried questions, possibilities, and for the first time, a glimpse of shared hope. The apartment in St. Augustine wasn't luxurious by Henry's standards, but to Lily it was a palace. The girl ran from one room to another, opening cabinets, testing the mattress in what would be her room, and marveling at the balcony that offered a partial view of City Park. "Mom, look, you can see the trees," she exclaimed, leaning safely over the railing. Carly observed her daughter's excitement with a contained smile, still uncomfortable with the situation. They had moved in 3 days ago after Lily was discharged from the hospital. The girl was still taking antibiotics, but her recovery had surprised the doctors. Children have impressive resilience, they said. "It's temporary," Carly repeated to herself while arranging the small wardrobe with the few clothes they owned. "Just until we can get something more stable." Henry had respected her space. He didn't show up without warning, always called first. He brought Claire to play with Lily a few times, but never stayed longer than necessary. It was as if he understood that Carly needed this time to accept the help without feeling completely dependent. That Saturday afternoon, the girls were playing in the living room, while Carly prepared a simple snack in the kitchen. The intercom rang. It was Henry, punctually at 4 as they had arranged. "Uncle Henry is here," Lily announced, running to the door. Claire entered like a hurricane, carrying a colorful box. "Lily, I brought the new game I got for my birthday." The two quickly disappeared into the bedroom, leaving the adults in the living room. Henry looked different. He wore jeans and a blue polo shirt, a casual appearance that Carly had never seen on him before. "How are you adapting?" he asked, placing a paper bag on the center table. "Well," Carly replied, indicating the sofa for him to sit. "Lily is loving it. I think she's never had so much space to run around. And you?" The direct question made her hesitate. How was she feeling? Grateful, certainly, relieved to see Lily recovered and happy, but also restless, as if she were floating in a temporary state that could disappear at any moment. "I'm looking for a job," she replied, slightly deflecting from the question. "I saw some openings at restaurants downtown." Henry nodded, respecting her need for independence. From the bag, he pulled out an envelope. "This came for you at my office," he said, extending it. Carly took the envelope, confused. "For me? How would someone know they could contact me through you?" "Open it," he suggested with a small smile. Inside the envelope was a letter with the letterhead of the University of Pennsylvania. Carly read quickly, her eyes widening as she absorbed the content. "This is... How did you..." she stammered, looking from the paper to Henry. "You mentioned that you completed 3 semesters of nursing," he explained. "I made some calls. Your academic record is still active in the system. With some complementary courses, you could resume the program next semester." Carly felt tears burn her eyes, but she held them back. The idea of resuming her dream seemed so distant that it almost hurt to consider it. "That's very kind, Henry, but it's not realistic," she replied, carefully folding the letter. "I need to work, take care of Lily. I don't have time to study." "What if you did?" he asked softly. "The university has scholarships for single mothers, and Lily could attend the campus daycare." "Why are you doing this?" Carly questioned, her voice firmer than she intended. "You've already given us a roof, paid for the hospital. What do you want in return?" The question hung in the air, loaded with all of Carly's insecurities and past experiences. Henry didn't immediately answer. He stood up and walked to the balcony, observing the city outside. When he finally turned, there was a vulnerability in his gaze that she had never seen before. "You know what impresses me most about you, Carly?" he began. "It's not your strength or your dedication to Lily, although both are admirable. It's your authenticity. You're real in a way that people in my world rarely are." He paused, choosing his words. "Since we met in that square, something has changed. Claire is happier. I am more present. I'm beginning to question priorities that I never questioned before." He gave a small smile. "I've even started reading fiction again." Carly couldn't help a slight smile upon hearing this. "I don't want anything in return," Henry continued. "If anything, I've already received more than I could have expected just by spending time with you, even if briefly." The silence that followed was interrupted by laughter coming from the girls' room. Carly got up and went to the kitchen, needing a moment to process everything she was feeling. Henry followed her, maintaining a respectful distance. "I'll consider it," she finally said, serving juice in glasses. "About the university. But I need to do this my way and my time." "Of course," Henry quickly agreed. "The decision is entirely yours." As they took the snack to the girls, Carly noticed how different Lily looked. Her cheeks were rosier, her eyes brighter. The security of a home, even a temporary one, was already working wonders. After the children finished their snack and went back to playing, Carly found Henry looking at the few photographs she had placed in an improvised frame. Her and Lily at different ages, and a faded photo of an older woman. "My mother," Carly explained, approaching. "She took care of Lily while I tried to study and work. When she passed away, everything fell apart." "I'm sorry," Henry said sincerely. "She always said that education was the only asset that no one could take from us," Carly continued, gently touching the photograph. "She would be happy to know that I have the chance to finish my degree." "So you're going to try?" Henry asked, hope in his voice. "I am," Carly decided in that moment. "For her, for Lily, and for myself." The smile that lit up Henry's face was genuine. There was something more he wanted to say. Carly could feel it, but he was interrupted by his cell phone that rang insistently. He checked the screen and his expression changed. "I need to answer this," he apologized, stepping away to the balcony. Through the glass door, Carly observed him talking, his body tense again, the executive's posture gradually returning. The conversation seemed serious. When he returned, Henry looked concerned. "Any problem?" she asked. "Nothing serious. Some adjustments to a contract that I need to review," he replied, trying to sound casual. "Unfortunately, I'll need to leave earlier." Carly nodded, understanding that he had responsibilities that couldn't be ignored. They called the girls, who vehemently protested against the early separation. Claire begged to stay a little longer, and after a quick exchange of glances with Carly, Henry agreed. "Can I pick her up at 7?" he asked Carly. "Of course," she agreed. "I'll prepare something for dinner." After Henry left, the hours passed quickly between games and laughter from the girls. Carly was preparing a simple pasta dish when the doorbell rang again. It was only 6:30. Henry was early. Upon opening the door, however, she didn't find Henry, but an elegantly dressed woman, with perfectly arranged blonde hair and a severe expression. "Where is my daughter?" she asked without preamble. Carly felt a chill run down her spine. This could only be Fiona, Henry's ex-wife and Claire's mother. "Good evening," Carly replied calmly, keeping the door partially closed. "Claire is playing with my daughter. Henry will come to pick her up at 7. "I don't need to wait for Henry to pick up my own daughter," Fiona declared, pushing the door slightly to enter. The apartment, which moments before had seemed cozy, suddenly seemed very small and simple under Fiona's evaluating gaze. Her eyes scanned the environment, pausing on Carly's few visible belongings in the living room. "So this is where Henry is hiding his friend?" she commented, loading the last word with insinuation. Carly felt her face burn but maintained her composure. "We're not hidden, and I'm not what you're insinuating," she replied with dignity. "Claire and my daughter are friends." Fiona gave a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Of course, and Henry is just a generous benefactor, I imagine," she said with sarcasm. "Claire, come, Mommy is here." The girls appeared in the hallway, Claire visibly confused to see her mother. "Mom, today isn't your day to pick me up," she questioned. "There was a change of plans, darling." "Let's go home," Fiona replied, her voice softening when speaking to her daughter. Claire looked at Lily, then at Carly, clearly reluctant to go. "But Daddy was going to pick me up. And Ms. Carly made pasta," she protested. "We can eat at a restaurant on the way," Fiona offered, extending her hand. "Come on, darling. Get your things." Reluctantly, Claire obeyed, saying goodbye to Lily with a tight hug. Fiona remained at the entrance, her rigid posture betraying her discomfort. "I don't know what's going on between you and Henry," she said in a low voice while Claire collected her belongings in the bedroom. "But I suggest you don't delude yourself. He has a pattern. He becomes enchanted with novelties, especially if they're charity projects. When he gets tired, he moves on." The words hit Carly like precise arrows, touching on insecurities she was trying to ignore. Before she could respond, Claire returned, backpack on her shoulders. "Ready, Mum," she announced sadly. "Great. Say goodbye to Aunt Carly," Fiona instructed, sarcastically emphasizing the aunt. "Bye." "Aunt Carly, the pasta looked delicious," Claire said, hugging Carly quickly. "Another time you can try it," Carly promised, crouching down to be at the girl's height. "Take care, Claire." After Fiona and Claire departed, Carly closed the door and leaned against it, feeling strangely shaken. Lily observed her with attentive eyes. "Mom, who was that angry woman?" she asked innocently. "Claire's mother, dear," Carly replied, forcing a smile. "Let's have dinner? The pasta is almost ready." While serving her daughter, the phone rang. It was Henry, his voice tense. "Carly," Fiona called me. "She said she went to pick up Claire. Is she there?" "Not anymore," Carly replied. "She came about 20 minutes ago and took Claire." There was a moment of silence, then a heavy sigh. "I'm sorry. She shouldn't have done that," Henry said, clearly embarrassed. "Fiona can be territorial." "She made it quite clear what she thinks about our situation," Carly commented, keeping her tone neutral so that Lily wouldn't notice her uneasiness. "What did she say?" Henry asked, alarmed. "Nothing I hadn't already thought of," Carly replied honestly. Henry, maybe we should talk in person another day. Lily and I are having dinner now. Of course, he quickly agreed. Can I come by tomorrow? Tomorrow, Carly confirmed before hanging up. That night, while Lily slept peacefully in her new room, Carly stayed awake, re-evaluating every decision she had made in the last few weeks. Fiona's words echoed in her mind, mixing with her own doubts. Was she really building something solid for Lily, or just floating in a temporary fantasy that would crumble when Henry moved on? The next morning she made a decision. When Henry arrived, they would have a frank conversation, not about the apartment or the university, but about what was really happening between them, if there was anything beyond an act of kindness that would eventually be exhausted. Because no matter how much she tried to deny it, Carly realized that her feelings for Henry had already surpassed mere gratitude, and that scared her more than any material insecurity she had ever faced. Sunday morning dawned with a fine rain over Philadelphia, the kind of persistent drizzle that invites retreat. Carly prepared an elaborate breakfast, homemade cheese rolls, carrot cake, and hot chocolate. While Lily was still asleep, she set the table carefully as if the perfection of the details could compensate for the chaos in her thoughts. At 10 o'clock sharp, the doorbell rang. Henry was in the hallway holding a bouquet of sunflowers and with an expression between concern and determination. "Good morning," he greeted, handing her the flowers. "These are your favorites, right? I remember you mentioned it in the square." Carly accepted the bouquet, surprised that he had noticed that casual detail mentioned weeks ago. "Thank you. Come in," she invited, leading him to the living room. "Lily is still sleeping. She always sleeps in on weekends." Henry nodded, sitting on the sofa. He looked different. There was an intensity in his gaze, as if he had made important decisions during the night. "About yesterday," he began. "I'm sorry about Fiona's behavior. We've been separated for almost 2 years, but she still—" "You don't need to explain," Carly interrupted gently, putting the sunflowers in an improvised vase. "Relationships are complicated, and she is Claire's mother. It's natural that she worries. What exactly did she say to you?" Henry asked directly. Carly hesitated, analyzing how much she should share. She opted for honesty. It was the only possible path between them now. "She implied that I am your new charity project, and that you would eventually get tired and move on," she replied, keeping her tone neutral despite the discomfort. Henry closed his eyes for a moment, as if the words had physically hit him. When he reopened them, there was determination in his gaze. "Fiona and I married for convenience," he revealed. "Our families had businesses together. We shared similar ambitions. There was never what I'm feeling now." The confession hung in the air between them, loaded with implications that neither was completely ready to verbalize. Carly felt her heart accelerate, but maintained her composure. "Henry, we need to be realistic," she said, sitting in the armchair opposite him. "We are from completely different worlds. You run a business empire. I'm rebuilding my life from scratch, with a daughter to raise. What if I told you that these worlds aren't as incompatible as they seem?" he questioned, leaning slightly forward. "Carly, since we met, I've been questioning everything I thought was important. Money, status, power. None of that fills the void I've felt in recent years." "It's easy to romanticize simplicity when you have a choice," Carly argued, keeping her feet on the ground. "Living without resources has nothing poetic about it, Henry. It's exhausting, it's frightening." "I'm not romanticizing your struggle," he quickly assured. "I'm admiring your strength despite it." "There's a difference." A small smile appeared on Carly's lips. He really was trying to understand. "What do you want, Henry?" "Really?" she asked directly. Before he could answer, the intercom rang. Carly frowned. They weren't expecting visitors. "I'll be right back," she said, getting up to answer. The doorman's voice sounded concerned. "Miss Carly, there's a young woman down here. Says she's a reporter and wants to talk to you. Something about a story involving Mr. Anderson." Carly paled, looking at Henry, who was now beside her, having heard the conversation. "Don't authorize her to come up," Henry quickly instructed, taking out his phone. "I'll resolve this." In the following minutes, Carly observed Henry make several calls, his voice alternating between firm and conciliatory. When he finally hung up, his countenance was serious. "A paparazzo photographed us leaving the hospital," he explained. "Someone in the administration leaked the information that I paid for Lily's treatment. The story has been circulating on some gossip blogs since last night. What? Carly felt a chill down her spine. What kind of story? Some speculations about who we are, why I'm helping you, Henry replied, visibly embarrassed. The kind of sensationalist trash that sells clicks. That explains Fiona's sudden visit, Carly concluded, the pieces fitting together. She must have seen the news. At that moment, Lily appeared in the hallway, still in pajamas, rubbing her sleepy eyes. "Good morning, Mom," she murmured, then noticed Henry. "Uncle Henry. Did Claire come too?" "Not today, little one," he replied with a forced smile. "But maybe soon." Carly led Lily to have breakfast, trying to act normally while her mind processed the implications of this new complication. When the girl finished eating and went to watch cartoons on television, the adults returned to the interrupted conversation. "This will pass," Henry assured, keeping his voice low. "My public relations team is already handling the matter." "This isn't just about us, Henry," Carly pointed out, concerned. "It's about Lily, too. She's starting to stabilize after such a long time of uncertainty. I can't allow her to become a character in gossip." "I understand your concern," Henry replied, hesitantly touching Carly's hand. "And I'll respect any decision you make. But first I need you to know something." He took his briefcase and pulled out an envelope, extending it to Carly. "What is this?" she asked, reluctant to accept. "It's not money, if that's what you're thinking," Henry smiled slightly. "They're documents about a project I've been developing over the last few weeks." Intrigued, Carly opened the envelope and examined its contents. They were architectural plans, contracts, and official documents for the creation of a foundation. "New Horizons Foundation?" she read aloud, confused. "An educational and cultural center for children in vulnerable situations," Henry explained, his enthusiasm growing as he spoke. "With scholarships, medical assistance, support for single mothers, and a special program for artistic development." Carly looked at him, beginning to understand. "Because of Lily and her drawings," she concluded softly. "In part," Henry admitted, "but also because I realized that I could use my resources for something more meaningful than just accumulating capital." He paused, carefully choosing his next words. "I'm looking for someone to coordinate the family assistance sector, someone who understands the real needs in practice, not just theoretically. Someone like you, Carly, when you finish your nursing training." The proposal caught her completely off guard. It wasn't charity. It was a real opportunity based on her capabilities and experiences. "You're offering me a job?" she asked, still processing the information. "I'm offering a partnership," Henry corrected. "A chance for us to build something together, something that can help other women and children in the situation that you and Lily were in." The silence that followed was loaded with possibilities. Carly went through the documents again, seeing the seriousness and careful planning behind that project. "That doesn't answer my previous question," she finally said, raising her eyes to face him. "What do you want, Henry? Really?" He took a deep breath before answering. "I want to build a life that makes sense. Not just accumulate professional successes, while my relationship with Claire is reduced to scheduled meetings between business appointments," he confessed. "And since I met you and Lily, I've glimpsed what that life could be like." Carly felt her eyes sting with unshed tears. "What about the comments, the gossip? People like Fiona, who will always see us as opportunists," she questioned, verbalizing her biggest fears. "People will always talk, Carly, whether out of envy, prejudice, or simple malice," Henry replied with serenity. "The question is, will we let them define our choices?" Before Carly could respond, Henry's phone rang again. He checked the screen and sighed. "It's Richard, my financial director. I need to answer." While Henry talked on the phone, Carly went to the living room to check on Lily, who was drawing intently while the television displayed cartoons at minimum volume. The girl had created a colorful scene, 4 figures holding hands in front of a large building with many windows. "What are you drawing, my love?" Carly asked, sitting beside her daughter. "It's us," Lily explained excitedly. "Me, you, Uncle Henry, and Claire. And this is the art school that Uncle Henry is going to build. He told me yesterday before he left." Carly felt her heart tighten. Henry had already shared his plans with Lily, planting seeds of hope in the girl's heart. "Would you like that? For us to have Uncle Henry and Claire closer to us?" she asked carefully. Lily nodded enthusiastically. "Yes, Uncle Henry is cool. He doesn't talk to me like I'm silly. And Claire is my best friend." The simplicity of the childish response contrasted with the complexity of adult emotions. Henry reappeared in the living room, his countenance concerned. "Problems?" Carly asked. "Nothing serious. Just some adjustments to a negotiation," he replied, then noticed Lily's drawing. "Wow, that's incredible, Lily. Is that the foundation?" "Yes." "With all of us together," the girl replied proudly. Henry and Carly exchanged a meaningful look over the child's head. There were so many unspoken things, so many questions to resolve, but also a real possibility of building something meaningful together. "Lily, how about showing Uncle Henry the other drawings you made for the art school?" Carly suggested, giving her daughter and herself a moment to organize their thoughts. While Lily ran to get her drawing notebook, Henry approached Carly. "I know it's complicated," he said in a low voice, "that there are many obstacles, many differences between us. I'm not asking for an answer now. Just that you consider the possibilities." "I'm afraid, Henry," Carly finally admitted, "not just of getting hurt, but of Lily becoming even more attached and then suffering if it doesn't work out." "I'm afraid too," he confessed, surprising her. "Afraid of going back to who I was before I met you. Afraid of wasting this chance to have something real, something that really matters." Lily returned with her notebook, interrupting the moment of shared vulnerability. She proudly showed each drawing, explaining the details with the vibrant imagination of children. Henry listened attentively, asking questions and praising her genuine talent. Carly observed them, her mind full of possibilities and uncertainties. She knew that no decision would be easy or free of risks, but maybe, just maybe, those risks were worth it. 2 weeks later, the media buzz had diminished, although not completely disappeared. Carly had resumed contact with the university, preparing for the re-entry process. Henry had established clearer boundaries with Fiona, who reluctantly accepted the new dynamic after realizing that her sabotage attempts only brought Claire closer to Lily. On a sunny afternoon, the 4 figures from Lily's drawing walked together through the gardens of the Palace of Arts. Claire and Lily ran ahead, their laughter echoing in the air. Henry discreetly held Carly's hand, a simple gesture that still made her blush. "The land for the foundation will be deeded tomorrow," he commented as they watched the girls. "The architectural project will be ready in a few weeks." "It still seems like a dream," Carly replied, squeezing his hand lightly. "Sometimes I wake up thinking I'll return to the shelter, that all this will disappear." "It's real," Henry assured, stopping to face her. "We're building it together, as we promised." A few meters away, Claire and Lily had stopped to observe a street artist who was making charcoal portraits. Without hesitation, Claire took out some bills from the small wallet she carried and offered them to the man, asking him to draw her and Lily together. Watching the girls posing side by side, their differences evident but completely irrelevant to them, Carly felt a certainty grow in her chest. It wouldn't be easy. There would be obstacles and adjustments, difficult conversations and moments of doubt. But what they were building, not just the foundation but this new family configuration, was something too precious to be abandoned out of fear. "You know what I like most about you?" she asked Henry, as they walked slowly in the direction of the girls. "What?" "That you didn't try to save me," she replied with a serene smile. "You offered tools for me to save myself. There's a huge difference in that." Henry smiled, understanding the depth of those words. Later that night, while Lily slept peacefully in her room, Carly found a small package on her bed. Inside was a key and a note written in Henry's elegant handwriting, "For when you're ready. No rush, no pressure. One step at a time, building together. With love, H." The key wasn't to the apartment where they already were. It was something new, a symbol of a future they could build at their own pace, respecting the time and space that Carly needed. Holding the key against her chest, Carly looked out the window at the illuminated city outside. Philadelphia truly lived up to its name that night, offering a truly beautiful horizon of possibilities. In that moment, she understood that real love didn't happen as in fairy tales, with princes saving damsels. It happened like this, imperfect, gradual, built daily with small gestures of respect and understanding. In reconciled differences and shared dreams,